Adrian.
Yes.
I've met Adrian. What's your last name?
I'm Adrian Sierkowski.
Okay. What do you do on set?
Today I'm a gaffer for Bobby, a good friend of mine. Usually I shoot.
What does the gaffer do?
Make sure nobody gets electrocuted for the most part. And gaffers are in charge of running power to the set and placing lights where they need to be for exposure and for the look and feel of the movie. Lights.
Lights.
Yeah, for the look and the feel of the shot and making sure it all looks appropriate.
So then, what on this set? What is the look and feel? How would you describe this as opposed to like the other projects you've worked on?
Noisier. No, Bobby for this is going for a kind of neon demon horror film where we have a lot of really saturated colors and a lot of harder light, a higher contrast than you would typically go for if you're doing a comedy or a drama or something like that. And very colorful, working off of a overall red and yellow scheme and trying to make things frightening. And also really trying to hide the Toton Maruk in shadow and darkness and letting that play, the interplay between light and dark, back and forth.
That's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
That's really cool. So then, in terms of what you do, what sort of choices do you make? Because you're talking about Bobby, the DP, and like his overall design, and then you're executing it. You're making it actually. You're kind of making it happen, or like what is it?
It depends on the shot. I mean, my job today is to cover Bobby's ass, really. Try to help him to make sure that we don't shoot into a corner or something like that we can't light. And then the choices really is, which head to put where and how to power it all and how intense to make each light. And, thinking ahead, if we're doing a shot like this, then we do a shot reverse, figuring out how to properly stage so that we're not waiting too long to reposition the units that we have. And pretty much to try to keep it consistent as well.
Not waiting too long to reposition the units you have. Why would that matter if you waited too long? What would happen?
You mean it costs a lot of money. Films aren't very cheap, so every minute you waste, it could be thousands of dollars. In the worst case scenario, you don't get all the shots you need to make the scene. In a best case scenario, you lose 1 or 2 shots. But if you're not on point, everything kind of grinds to a halt because you can't move forward until the lights are in the right spot. Otherwise, you're going to be shooting nothing.
So you're saying that you want to minimize the amount of times you have to move lights?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as much as you can.
Cool.
I mean, it's not move lights, it's the amount of time of moving lights. So, perfect example is, you and I having a conversation right here, If I spend all my time making this look amazing, but while I do that, I have to think about when it comes to put the camera onto you, how long it's going to take me to turn all those heads around and reposition it and get the exact same effect. So ideally, we try to find a good middle ground where I can make this look amazing, but also minimize the time to turn everything around and make you look amazing as well, Because typically when you're shooting somebody, you'll have what's called a key light, which is the main light, which is like over here for this. It's this light coming on my face. They have a fill light, which in this case is this kind of white-ish wall kind of hitting me. But you'll also have backlights and kickers, which is tree kind of blocks, but no stuff behind me. So you won't see it on my shot, but if it was your shot, you'd see it, and there's all kinds of stuff around, and so keep that in mind when you're trying to do it.
It seems like a lot to keep in mind.
It is.
I mean, at some point, does it ever become second nature to you? Is it to the point
Years ago.
Years ago?
Years ago, yeah.
How many years have you been working?
23.
Holy
23
cow.
years. 33 now, so 23 years.
Why do you keep doing this?
Oh, well.
Well, how did you get started? I'm sorry.
No, okay. The easy question. Can I smoke while I do this interview?
Oh, absolutely.
Great.
Go for it.
So, I hate interviews too.
Sorry, kids. Don't do this at home.
Yes, don't ever smoke. I mean, unless you work in film, in which case I highly recommend smoking. I'll tell you why later. There's a reason why I do recommend it, though. I do recommend smoking on set because it gives you a chance to walk away for a minute and actually collect your thoughts in quiet and relaxation. So
Except if the whole crew is smoking.
that's true, but you can kind of still do your own thing. I started with my dad. So my mom and dad met when they were in grad school together, getting the doctorates. And my mom promptly died when I was born. So that's fine.
She died?
Yeah. So
Giving birth?
done, which is great.
This This is like 1800s.
Mm.
What the fuck?
It was a bad cesarean. When they cesareaned her, they nicked something and she bled out, which is awful. I mean, it was. There were other reasons just beyond that. It just didn't go according to plan. So, my dad did film. So it was he and I, for my entire young life, just bouncing around doing film. And he got a job working out of the UK, doing documentary and nature shows, that type of thing. So we bounced around a lot, and I was a kid, so I'd go along a lot. And long time ago, when video was first taking off, you had a Betacam, which had a camera and a big long tube to a deck, and you wore this deck on you, and it weighed about 20 to 30 pounds, because it was 2 units. Yeah, a VCR, a big VCR for the camera, because it wasn't like today with this big. The camera was this long, and nightmare. So they decided they're going to use these, and we were shooting up in Kenya, and I was 10, and the guy that was running the VTR deck, he ate some not very good food and got incredibly sick. So he had to get him out of the hospital, and so we're in the middle of nowhere, and they just put it on me and told me the buttons to press. And then they gave me 50 pounds, which is a lot of money to do it.
10 years old.
10 years old. I mean, it's 2 buttons, so it's not super hard to mess up, thankfully. Pretty well paid, too. Yeah. And after that, I mean, after that, I'd always be around in between studies. I'd be around to help out and make tea and sweep floors. And eventually, we moved back to the U.S. I was about 12 and a half. And I got a job working in studios, doing a lot of cooking shows and aerobics videos and that type of stuff. It was a big market back then, that type of content. And eventually, I was helping take down flats, and I broke the whole set. And I thought they were going to fire me, and they didn't. They promoted me instead. Flats are studio walls you put up to make it. You're in a studio, so there's no walls. So you build fake walls, and they're called flats, and they look like a thing. It just broke this entire thing. It all fell on me. It was awful. And thought they were going to fire me, but the director hated the set so much that he was glad that it broke and that he could get a new one for the next season. Because you take that at the end of the season entirely. Normally you store them and you just keep reusing them over and over again, like the Enterprise set, for example. And so I remember, started doing electric work and lamp operating and that type of stuff after school, and been doing it ever since.
Wait, where was that?
Philadelphia.
Philadelphia?
Mm-hmm.
Dang, so how long were you in the UK?
Oh God, I never lived in the UK for that long. I mean, we were back. No, my dad was from Philly. But we had a house in Philadelphia. We had a house in Yorkshire, and then we had a house in Zimbabwe, and that's we kind of just bumped around a lot.
Yeah, because your accent is very complex.
Right, well, my real one's this. So if you want me to talk my real accent, it's much more this way. But what I've learned a long time ago is that people here in the States don't know what you're saying to them if you talk this way to them at all. So I learned, not on purpose, because when I came back to the US, I sounded like a fucking idiot. And they put me in ESL courses and speech therapy because I had a horrible stutter. And South Philly, if you've ever been to South Philadelphia, it's a very unique American accent. It's the kind of Rocky Balboa, how you doing type thing. And so I just got this weird mix together of learning American English versus, British English. Because I was in Catholic school, you can't say certain words can't say certain words that are British words in Catholic school in America without getting in a lot of trouble. Bollocks is one, or the F word. I don't mean the FU word. I mean the FA word, which means this, but you don't want to say it generally. God, that was an awful experience. But in any case, I just started doing film, and I did it, after school as a job, and it was fun, and I was good at it, I was told. And I was 16, and I was doing a show called Cooking with Mama, Old World Secrets, Cooking with Mama, Old World Secrets. It was I think it was a mafia front, honestly, but it was broadcast on WYBE in Philadelphia, and they eventually decided to make a documentary about this thing called the Piazza di Mercole in Pisa, Italy, and also shoot a new open for the show. So I flew over there, and I became one of the camera operators for that at 16, working a big Betacam and shooting. I'm sure that's illegal, actually, when I think about it, for child labor, but.
Well.
And then, I graduated high school, I did other things, and went to college, and I was going to be a director for all of a couple days, and then I hated it a lot.
Why?
it's very easy in a weird way. If Fellini, in 8.5, gets into this, a director's job is in a lot of ways to say yes or no to things. And if you have a good crew around you and good actors around you, your job as a director is, in a weird way, very simple. If you're all on the same kind of page, the problems are solved for you, and that just didn't really sit with me,
That's
right?
hard to get there, though, isn't it?
It is. I got kind of lucky. I was on a good page with the people I was working with, and I realized that I didn't interface with a script in a way that was conducive to directing actors. I didn't interface with a script in terms of the way of delivering a line. I interfaced with it much more visually and much more how to enhance what's happening with actors. And so I started shooting, and I've been DPing ever since. I'm gaffing this, but normally I shoot. It's my real job. It's what I get paid to do.
That's your regular job?
Yeah, my regular job.
Why would you gaff that?
Bobby.
Bobby.
Yeah, Bobby. I mean, Bobby's a great guy. He comes out with me a lot when I'm DPing. He'll gaff for me. I brought him on as a best boy electric on a couple features that I've gaffed on. And also when you do gaff and you have other DPs with you, you get to steal a lot of good ideas, because everybody works a very different way. Everybody has their own style of shooting. And so you learn things that way, and it's great that you're paid to do it.
Yeah.
And it's also nice, I get lucky that most DPs who I work with as a gaffer really listen and value my input, because they've seen me shoot stuff before. They know I shoot stuff.
That would make you a great gaffer.
It can. It also makes me a pain in the ass for other DPs, but
Why is that?
you got to be very careful with ego on set. So you got to be very careful with that, and you don't want to cross boundaries, and the boundaries are always changing and questionable sometimes. So you have to be very humble in the way you approach the thing, and humble in how you talk about it. And you really have to remember your place. The worst thing you could have as a DP is another DP on your crew. So you have to be able to, as best you can, turn that off and understand that it's their show and they're your boss now. As best you can. I do it okay sometimes, I guess.
Adrian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What else you want to know?
Do you have any other questions? This is a lot of really.
That was the most interesting.
For all the viewers at home as well.
That was really intriguing.
Yeah, my pleasure. And
Sincerely.
yeah, anytime.
You're
yeah.
very, very
Yeah,
cool
and
guy.
anybody who is watching this, feel free. If you watch the credits of the film, you'll see my name there. If you have questions about film or anything, feel free to look me up. I'm always happy to answer them. There's a backlog currently, about 2 or 3 weeks, but yeah, it's whatever you like.